Cowboys fate. Coach's seed, a cursed estate. Jerry shadow looms so great. Who'll be next to seal their fate? Deion Sanders laughed and fled. Not a job for him, he said. Better save your dreams instead than face that Dallas dread. Nobody wants the Cowboys fate. Coach's seed, a cursed estate. Jerry shadow looms so great. Who'll be next to seal their fate? Cowboys.
All right, so One Star Cowboys podcast, and just so you know, we are recording this Sunday night, January 19th. We're down to the Final Four in the NFL. I'm Kevin Turner with John Machota, Saad Youssef, and Kent Garrison. Going to talk about the Cowboys coaching search and all that good stuff, but let's quickly, just a quick thought on two teams in the division are going to the NFC title game. Did Jerry watch these games this weekend and feel anything at all, John?
I'm stuck on if he watched them. He would say 100% that he did. I'm going to say there's an 80% chance that he did, but I can't go 100% on it. So I would think that he watched them because I would think that he'd have interest in some of the assistant coaches that were on several of the teams. You know, whether you go by yesterday with Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, or you go to today with Kellen Moore or Joe Brady, probably forgetting somebody. I think that's about it. There's nobody with Baltimore, right?
I mean, if you want to throw Todd Monken in there, we could play that game.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to do that.
Like the Bears
they should do that.
Having him in.
Yeah. Anybody else having Leslie Frazier in?
I mean,
We should have probably. I mean, that's a name that makes all the sense in the world when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys coaching search.
To answer your question, though, I would think that yes, he was keeping track of what happened. I don't think that anything that happened should really have that much of an impact one way or the other. I mean, you're talking about hiring a head coach. Like, you should have a good feel for that person at this stage. I would hope. Is that too much to ask?
I mean,
I think first of all, I wouldn't be surprised if, like, whenever we talk to Jerry, if he made some sort of joke about how the Cowboys were the last team to beat the Commanders, because the Commanders ended the regular season on a 4-game winning streak and have won 2 playoff games. The last time they lost was to the Cowboys, which, you know, they beat the Cowboys both times with, you know, or they lost to the Cowboys, you know, in weird situations. So, yeah, I think that they won the last game, obviously, but they lost that first one to Cooper Rush. I bet he would say something about that, but it's just, man, it was hard to miss some of the Cowboys connections while I was watching football this whole weekend. Whether it was, you know, obviously Dorrance Armstrong and you know, with the strip sack, things like that, but even with the Rams losing, Neville Gallimore sacking Jalen Hurts for a safety, obviously Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley. There was just a lot of Cowboys connections. Dan Quinn and Kellen Moore, both in the NFC Championship game. So yeah, my mind wandered to Cowboys land quite a bit throughout this weekend.
Yeah, I agree with you, especially the idea of it just adds more fuel to the fire for me of just how bad of a loss last year to Green Bay was, when you think of like how at that time, I don't think we thought a lot of, let's say, Dante Fowler or Dorrance or Neville Gallimore. Like, and when I say a lot, I mean to the level like that they're playing with other teams, and they weren't like the focal point of that Cowboys team. And the Cowboys were kind of looked at as like, yeah, you know, the defense is Micah Parsons and then, you know, a few other guys or whatever. But it's like, you look at the totality of it and you're like, that was a pretty good defense. And then you add in that you had Dan Quinn. So yeah, no, it makes it look like, and then also the other part of it too is just from a Lions perspective, like it really came to the surface, like how bad, like all of the injuries hurt them on defense. And so that made me think of the last year's game too with the Cowboys, because you're just like, man, like that offense was so healthy. I mean, it was like the offensive line was, I mean, Tyron was back, and you had Tony Pollard, you had Rico Dowdle, you know, you had Jake Ferguson was playing great, you know, you had Gallup, you had Jalen Tolbert, Cooks, Obviously, CD, Dak was obviously playing well. There's just so many things I look back at that team where I'm just like, man, that was a big time missed opportunity there.
Yeah, and to go real quick on that, especially with the Lions connection, when people talk about injuries, even last year, John, you're absolutely right about the offense, but even defensively, you missed Trayvon Diggs, and then Deron Bland stepped up with an All-Pro season, and Leighton Vander Esch, that hurt along with Overshown. Those two paired really hurt as the linebacking core, but for Dan Quinn's unit to have the game they did against the Packers, they weren't Overshown or Vander Esch away from turning that game around. And when you look at the Lions, I mean, what was that? The first or second play, their corner goes out, or their defensive back goes out, and then obviously they don't have Aiden Hutchinson and a plethora of other injuries. It was easy for a lot of people. I feel like the Lions were America's darling, and things like that. But it's easy for people to pile on and be like, oh, like Dan Campbell and this and that, dude. That team had 16 players on IR, and the Cowboys last year had one of the healthiest teams you could have going into the playoffs. And so I think that's a lot of just hindsight's 2020 when I saw a lot of people talking about some of that stuff, because the regret for the Cowboys in 2023, Troy Aikman said it best last year, that it's going to be looked at for a long time as a missed opportunity.
Now, he's not the play caller on offense or anything, but Dan Quinn should get a lot of credit for what's happening in Washington for a lot of different reasons. I know Jaden Daniels and Cliff Kingsbury, there's tons of people. But, like, you guys remember when the Eagles won the Super Bowl in 2017, how everyone was talking about Doug Peterson and his fourth down percentage. I mean, going into that game against Dan Campbell, I think Dan Quinn, they were 87%. I think Jaden Daniels was 8 for 8 passing on fourth downs. And to just not switch, never waver on any type of philosophy, like this is what we do, was like very interesting to see. And you couldn't help but play that game too of like, again, 48-32 is tough to sit there and get rid of your head coach who you've built a program with and then hire the defensive coordinator. And if that game was 21-14 Packers over Cowboys, does Dan Quinn maybe get that job? Was it that? How high did Jerry think of Dan Quinn as a possible head coaching candidate? All these things you can't help but just replay them all, and it doesn't matter right now. It really doesn't. I will say I do think Cliff through this weekend. I think Cliff, if Jerry had any interest in him, I think there's got to be more. And I don't think Cliff is a great fit here. I really don't. But I could see the formal interview process getting going with Cliff, and then of course we'll get to it. The Lions coordinators as well. I mean, Jerry's, I would imagine, at least going to ask to interview them.
Yeah, I will say, going back to the Lions-Commanders game with the Dan Quinn defense, there was also some of the same stuff you saw with the Cowboys defense. They would still give up yards. The reason that their defense came up big is because they had 5 takeaways. That was how Dan Quinn was in Dallas too. The Lions rushed for like 200 yards against them. It wasn't like they were just like the defense shut them down. But they got some huge takeaways, and if they only probably get 2 takeaways, they probably don't even win that game. But you get 5, and that's going to be tough to beat a team like that. And that is a Dan Quinn thing. Like his defense, they are just, it's been proven. They take the ball away, and they're very good at that. And they're going to get better because he's going to add more pieces to that defense. And then depending on what happens with Jane Daniels and his growth and everything like that, I mean, that team could be an absolute monster. There's no question about it. I mean, Dan Quinn deserves a lot of credit for building it the way he did, and doing it so quickly from a bad team to turn it around in one offseason like that. But the other part that you said got me off track. What was it about? What did you say after that? You said something about one of the other coordinators, I think it was. The
Lions coordinators or Cliff?
Cliff, that's what it was. Mm-hmm. I would think that Cliff, especially having previous head coaching experience, even though it wasn't great, I would think that pushes him up the list. Like, I would think that the Cowboys would try and interview him. I really do. I think that Jerry would like some of the stuff that he's done. Obviously, he's probably, I would think, familiar with him for the college success that he had offensively. And to do what he's done with Jaden Daniels, I mean, that's like we've talked on previous shows. If you think that he can help Dak Prescott, now obviously not the exact, he doesn't play the same way that Jaden Daniels does, but if you think that he can bring things to the table that gives Dak an advantage to where Dak could potentially keep improving, and playing his best ball, then that's a consideration. But the thing I just keep going back to, out of no matter what I saw in those games, nothing has changed me from thinking that Kellen Moore is still the front runner. And it's not like the Eagles had some great offensive game today. Like, they did what they've been doing. It also probably helped them a little bit to play in the conditions that they played in, and Saquon was a monster. But I just think that when you look at the candidates that are out there and how obvious it would be or who would make the most sense, I'm not saying it's like this, oh, well, no, I'm just telling you right now it's going to be him. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying when you factor in who's out there and you look at it, I don't know that there's anybody you could say would be above Kellen Moore. And it's fascinating to me because that would be kind of a wild card pick if you told me this a couple weeks ago, because I look at the Cowboys of, this stretch that they haven't been back to, an AFC or an NFC championship game or a Super Bowl, whatever. Yeah, it's been way too long. It's inexcusable. But I don't look at it like a lot of their hires like they were crazy hires. Like, Bill Parcells is not a crazy hire. Like, it's a good hire. But it's not like crazy. Like, what are they thinking there? Wade Phillips wasn't that. If you take yourself back to what Wade Phillips was at the time, that's not a crazy hire. Like, what are they doing? Jason Garrett, maybe you can say that about getting a contract extension, but even when they hired him, there was tons of teams interested in him. And you could say the same thing about Mike McCarthy. I understand that there's other directions people want him to go, but when they hired Mike McCarthy, you're like, I can kind of see where they're coming from. So I keep thinking about that when I look at all these names. I'm like, okay, who fits that bill of where it's not a major reach, but it's also not something that's going to really be super exciting,
Yeah, and another thing that's interesting on the Cliff front, and I just looked it up real quick, so maybe I could be wrong, but on Pro Football Reference, throughout his years being the head coach in Arizona, there's not even an offensive coordinator listed. I mean, like, McCarthy was the offensive coordinator, play caller, even when Schottenheimer was the quote-unquote offensive coordinator in the last 2 years. But Cliff doesn't even have one listed. So that would be interesting to me, too, about just how he would go about building his staff. And we've heard rumblings about how Witten will be involved in some capacity, maybe in a staff or something like that. Would he embrace that idea? Now, I'm not saying Witten as like a coordinator, but I'm saying like even on the staff, and just how he would go about building out that part of it. Because going back to his Arizona days, I looked through all 3-4 years, he doesn't even have one listed as a coordinator.
Oh, I don't think there's any chance he would let anybody else other than himself call those plays. I don't think Kellen would either. And to be honest with you, I don't think if that was Mike's first coaching job that he would have done that either. But it's that he was a veteran coach. Hey, I want to get this job. I'll take on Kellen Moore. If it doesn't work out, I got a 5-year deal. I'll eventually take over the offense anyway, which ended up happening. And so there's a little bit of that. But if you hire a Kellen Moore or a Joe Brady or a Ben Johnson or a Cliff Kingsbury, those guys are calling the offense, What about this name? What about Brian Schottenheimer?
I mean, if you're trying to build some type of gap to Witten, which is what I do believe is the end game.
Can you imagine if that's what it comes down to? It's not money. It's not like a lot of the things that other people would hope that it comes down to. It's, all right, which one of these guys is going to be cool with Witten being on staff?
Gosh. Yeah, which
you can't rule this out.
No, not at all. It's where I think it's going. Honestly, I mean, I 100% think it's going that way. Schottenheimer's an interesting name that we probably just looked over because once McCarthy's gone, you just assume everyone's going to be gone.
Yeah, I
think it's perfectly fine to keep that name in there. It's damn for sure more likely than Leslie Frazier. It's I would argue it's damn for sure more likely than Robert Saleh even.
Yeah.
Hey,
it would only be because if they want to keep continuity, though, Saad. That's the only way I'm saying is if they're like, let's keep building on what we did, whatever, like that.
Yeah, and I agree. But I also, on the Leslie Frazier thing, like, I'm not trying to belittle anybody as like a candidate or anything like that. But man, the Rooney Rule, like it just makes you look at these things weirdly a little bit. Like the Patriots interviewing like Byron Leftwich for the head coaching position. Like, I mean. That was clearly we kind of know what that was, and I'm not saying Leslie Frazier or Robert Saleh, both who would qualify as that. I'm not saying they were just Rooney Rule interviews, especially not Saleh. But yeah, it's just with some of those you have to just
about Eddie George with the Bears today.
Yeah,
right.
That was pretty wild. Yeah.
Which, by the way, the Bears is interesting because they had McCarthy. There's the private plane story. And it's very clear the Bears are still just waiting on the Lions coordinators. And I guess we should, let's do this because the Lions lost. because you don't have to wait till February to speak to Aaron Glenn or Ben Johnson. We can get this ball moving. I do think it's one of the more interesting stories of this week is seeing if the Cowboys asked to interview. I think Aaron Glenn, and I think they will, asked to interview Ben Johnson, though. And he may not even accept it, but I think that's interesting because.
Couldn't you see Ben Johnson having a head coaching job by like Wednesday, though? To where he's just like, he's already had something lined up. Like that wouldn't surprise me at all. But the thing I keep thinking about is the longer this thing drags out and the Eagles are still playing, the more it points to Kellen Moore.
I think so too.
Like next week is Senior Bowl week. Jerry and Steven will most likely be there. If they still don't have a head coach there, and that's coming off of, let's say, the Eagles beat Washington, doesn't that point to what else would you be waiting for? You know what I'm saying?
Kellen or
are
Cliff,
you grabbing somebody
off?
Are you grabbing somebody off? Are you grabbing Steve Spagnuolo? Are you grabbing,
Joe Brady?
Whoever wins that
Serious
game.
question about Kellen. How much should they take into account his last tenure here and the fact that they didn't get it done when he was controlling the offense?
I got a lot of easy ones.
And the fact that this Philadelphia Eagles offense might be the most stacked Eagles offense in the history of the Eagles.
I would think in
Got
your
a lot to work
interview,
with.
I would think in your interview, you would go in there saying things that maybe Mike held you back on. That if it was your show, you would do this. These are things that we did because that was in the parameters of what Mike wanted to do, and it worked with his coaching staff, and I was fine with that. But I was never able to do everything I wanted to do. And this isn't just a Kellen versus Mike McCarthy thing. This is just how coaches are going to talk in those situations. They're going to tell you how, if you were running the show, this is how you would have done it. And I think that's what you would do in that situation.
Dak would have to back that up, right? Dak would have to back up. Yeah, Mike was holding Kellen back. There were things we could have done on offense that Mike wasn't cool with, Like I feel like a lot of this comes down to a Dak endorsement.
I love the lie detector on Dak, as Jerry calls him.
Yeah.
Is it true that Mike was tinkering with the offense too much with Kellen? I mean, that's like, what are we? God, this is so stupid that we're here, and we are. The other thing I keep thinking too is you look at the 4 teams left, though, all guys who their quarterback can get out of trouble, and can use their legs as a weapon, and that's not that much of a factor with Dak anymore, unless something crazy changes next year. But I think Dak is more towards that realm of Goff and Stafford. I just think it's interesting when you look at the Final Four here. Granted, their teams are all really good or whatever, but Hurts, Daniels, Allen, Mahomes, all pretty good, using their legs. And I think that's something that comes because that's what rules Cliff out for me. Just Cliff without a guy who can move very well. I don't know. And it's not like Cliff's just running the straight air raid from, he is not. There's plenty of things going on in that offense, but it just that feels dangerous to me. Where Kellen feels so safe. It does feel so safe, and I know Cowboys fans hate it. I don't hate it. I don't want him. Like it's not who I want, but I do think there's I forgot if we talked about this on the last podcast or if I talked about this with someone else. So I apologize. I think there's like a weird thing going on with Kellen, and it's almost like a reverse Dan Campbell because of the way Kellen looks and the way Kellen acts. And we start talking about leadership and things like that. And I'm like, man, I'm just going to need players to back that up 100% because there are players who will tell you that Dan Campbell's really smart. And just because the media was calling him a caveman after his first press conference, well, they'll tell you that he's really smart and he'll stop meetings and present some really interesting stuff on the board and things like that. And we're doing the same thing with Kellen, just on the other realm. And we kind of did it with Mike for all these years too. He's a big guy, so he must be lazy. And I just think that stuff is bad.
Well,
but I think it's happening.
I don't want you to go any further with this because I need to throw this in there because you're going right down the street that I think about this all the time. And it's I do think Dan Campbell is a great coach. And I don't think there's many people that could do for that franchise what he's done. But it's also easy for fans to latch on to what he does because you see it. And I've seen this in Dallas, not just head coaches, but like fiery Chris Richards on the sidelines where people automatically assume because they're fiery like that. And I ask you this because it obviously you follow the Packers closely. I don't know that you can be the head coach / offensive play caller and do enough of that like during games because you're so busy that it's hard for you to. Because I'm saying the Packers because LaFleur shows some emotion, and he's obviously like he's got a lot on his plate too, and I think he's shown more emotion maybe the last year or two than he did when he first got the job. And I don't know how much of that you can really do because you're just you have a lot on your plate. Now you can be fiery maybe in your press conferences, and that will help, I guess, with fans too. But I just think there's a little bit of an overrating of that stuff that you can see it. Doesn't mean you know what's going on behind the scenes. You know what I'm saying? Like the thing I keep going back to, and I'll just end this thought on this, is like watching that Lions game kind of brought me back a little bit thinking about the Trey Lance thing where I was just like, well, yeah, guys, of course they're not going to sit there and tell you, hey, in practice, we go against this defense. It's not good. We have to score every time we get the ball. No one's saying that, but they're obviously going against that defense in practice, and they know, and that's putting pressure on you like, oh, my, they're not going to get it. Trust me, they're not going to get any stops, guys. We have to score every single time. We go against these guys, But nobody's going to say that out loud. And until somebody does or until you actually see it, then you really can't say anything because you're not in the meeting rooms, And even when you do get a hard knocks behind the scenes, that stuff's all trimmed and edited to where you're not really seeing the real, true things. So I do think there's a little bit of an overrating to some of the rah-rah stuff from time to time.
Yeah, and I think some of the overrating for me comes a lot from the Dan Campbell perspective because we've seen this with coaching a lot where you see the hot young offensive coordinator, Sean McVay, Cliff Kingsbury, whoever it is, and you just think that you're just going to clone the next guy. I'm not taking anything from Dan Campbell. I think he is who he is, and I think he's authentic. But, I mean, that same type of coach can also very easily be Rex Ryan. And you think that just because the Patriots got Tom Brady at 199, suddenly, you have your franchise quarterback sitting there in the 6th round or 4th round or whatever every year. I feel like Dan Campbell has become this prototype that I don't think that it's not his fault, but I feel like we've done that a lot. Not we as in you like us, but I mean the general public has done that where everyone's looking for the next Dan Campbell. Sometimes, man, you just got to let it happen, and you just don't know. You can't, especially with that. It's hard to be like, well, I'm going to go try to get this guy. I mean, Dan Campbell works because of how authentic he is,
and that's the thing. Being the authentic, that's a good point, is very important because even if when you do talk about a Kellen Moore, there is probably a lot of fans that would like him if he was a little bit more vocal and you see him maybe on the sideline getting into a play or something like that. But here's the flip side of it. If he was to get hired as a head coach, he absolutely cannot start doing that stuff because guys would see right through that of like, oh my, what are you doing? Well, this isn't you at all. You know what I'm saying?
And I don't think anyone would think that would happen. That's where like, I heard it a couple times on the radio last week in town. Just a couple people had said, I heard the sentence uttered multiple times. Kellen Moore's not a leader of men. And I'm like, how do you know that?
Yeah.
Like, what do we, and what does that even mean? And like, what is his job? And like the staff that's around him would be important to that. And like, I just think, I think Jason Witten was quite a bit of a hard ass in the locker or for the team over the years.
Yeah.
If someone needed a butt chewing, I do think he held people accountable. Because we've seen it before. There's footage of him yelling at Joseph Randall. Like, we've seen this.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that was back in the day. I was in the locker room a lot more than I am now, which is never because you guys handle it. Thank you. But my point is like, how would anyone know? And it's to even think like that would be like job responsibility number one for Kellen. It wouldn't be like there would be staff built around. And that's why I think Kellen is a guy who would be cool with Witten on the staff. And if Witten is it's easy to say Witten would be the tight ends coach, but like that's where it might happen here. Like, I absolutely think Kellen would be okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, that's his former teammate. I mean, they played together, and then when Witten came back for a year, Kellen was a coach. So Witten has also experienced Kellen in both situations, both as a coach. I don't know what Kellen was in 2019, probably not the OC. He was probably the quarterback coach or something, but he was on the coaching staff, and then he was, a player, a quarterback with Witten. So, I think he'd definitely be fine with that.
Hey, you guys put an article out a couple days, and I'm also going to reference a John tweet in a second. But you guys put an article out a couple days ago, asking some questions. You got, I'll say, around 2,500 responses. The article's up at The Athletic. You're going to see it. Was parting ways with McCarthy the right decision? 66% of the readers said yes. Do you approve of the way Jerry handled the decision? Just rounding up here, 79% said not at all, which again tells you like the most aggressive answer on all these was the one that involved Jerry. And then the other one I wanted to go to is who would you like to see the Cowboys hire of these candidates? And the candidates mentioned.
No, hold on. Go to the one right before. Let's just do all four. What was the one right before it? Just what's that? Read
this
that.
decision has me feeling like 6% says the Cowboys are moving in the right direction. 40%.
That's why I wanted you to read it. Because I was blown away that I got 6%. I thought that was high, but anyway, go on. Sorry.
Well, I think they're like, well, starting one, let's get rid of McCarthy, and now we can go in the right direction. I might have been in that 6%. I'm gonna be honest with you, because I knew it wouldn't get a lot of answers, so I definitely did vote for that one. Not sure what to think, hoping for the best, 40%, and then your 54% is franchise is lost. No reason for hope. It's just a beautiful answer, and the options are great. I just love it. And then the last one, though, here are the candidates. And who would you like to see? I'll start at the bottom and go up. Liam Cohen, the Bucs OC, he got 1%. Joe Brady at the Bills OC. Ron Rivera actually got more than Joe Brady. Cliff Kingsbury, other, Aaron Glenn, Pete Carroll, Kellen Moore, Bill Belichick, Deion, Mike Tomlin, and then Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson getting 22%. So not a runaway favorite. Which tells me no matter what the Cowboys do, there's not going to be some it's only 2,500 people, right? Small sample size. But I don't really think there is a home run hire. Your home run is you won't know until the results come in. Like even the Deion thing, not even being a top 2 person on the list of people. I think it was interesting.
Since you said it, I love playing hypotheticals. Let's pretend like nobody has a contract next year. How many home runs are there in the NFL? I don't know the answer. I just want to hear what you guys think. Like,
no coach has a contract?
Yeah, so you can get whoever. You can get Andy Reid. You can go get Kyle Shanahan. You can go get Sean McVay. Like, how many fan base completely psyched? Let's go. Are there more than 10?
No.
I don't think so either.
Because right off the top of my head, I think Andy Reid, John Harbaugh, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan,
Dan
Quinn,
Dan
Campbell,
and Campbell. Help Dan Quinn now, yeah.
Especially because he knows the organization too. I think people would be really geeked about that. Like, let's say, for something let's say he had been with Washington for a few years and his contract was about to be up, and he's like, I always wanted the Cowboys job or something like that. It was in that type of scenario. I think you could throw Dan Quinn in there too. I think a lot of people would be pretty geeked about that.
Yeah, that might be where the list stops.
God, if we're playing the game though, just compared to what you had.
Jim Harbaugh, maybe?
Who would you take over McCarthy? I think I'd take about half the league over McCarthy.
Well, you guys didn't mention.
But
you guys didn't mention
John was
Nick
saying
Sirianni
who
though.
Psyched over.
Yes. What about Sirianni?
Yeah.
He's fiery. Don't the fans like that?
It's amazing too.
It's a package deal. He comes with Big Dom.
Yeah. That's on the other end of the spectrum though. Like the shine really wore off of Mike McDaniel once Tua's head. With all of Tua's head injuries, it's interesting because I think teams would probably still be kind of interested in him, but it ain't some home run like it was literally a year ago. So
yeah, but it's interesting because John's question was I feel like there's 2 different ways. Like if you're asking how many coaches in the league would fans like over McCarthy, I think that's well over 10. I think that's well over 15, well over half the league. But when if you ask about who just on a blank slate you get psyched over, I don't think there's 10.
Yeah, and the question too is also home run too, which takes us back to something John has told us a million times on this podcast. It's the players. We talk too much about coaching. It's the players.
What about Kevin O'Connell? Would he get in that on that side? Would you guys feel that way about him?
I would.
Yeah, after this year.
Yeah.
I would. Absolutely.
Sean Payton?
I don't like him, so I would not. But how can you argue what he did with Bo Nix? Yeah, a proven winner. I'm sorry. Yeah. God, I just don't like him.
Yeah. It's just interesting to me because I feel that way about the quarterbacks too. Where just everybody, not everybody, but so out of 32 teams, like 28 fan bases want a better quarterback, like even the ones that have, and I'm not saying that everybody in the Cowboys fan base, but there's so many that they want a better quarterback than Dak. There's Lions fans coming off that game the other night. They want a better quarterback than Goff. And you're just like, I don't know how many quarterbacks you think you're going to get. Like, Burrow's not going anywhere. Josh Allen's not going anywhere. Mahomes isn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson isn't going anywhere. Like, who do you think that you're really going to get? Obviously Chargers fans probably feel that way off of the game that Herbert had. Like, how much better do you think you're getting than Justin Herbert? Seriously, what are we doing here?
You're not. Yeah, and watch the quarterbacks in this draft. It's also, I was thinking of that too, though. Like, I think on our radio show we were giving away tickets to the Shrine game, and I was like, man, it'd be nice if the Cowboys had their coaching staff set to go scout all these guys. I know Shadour's going to be there. No, we don't need to scout Shador, but the point is, it'd be nice to have, and then all the scouts will be there and all that stuff. But it would just be real nice to have the direction in place.
To be fair, I don't think Mike McCarthy and his staff ever went to the Senior Bowl. They always did stuff back at the Star, and they left that up to the scouts. So
didn't a lot of teams start doing that though after COVID?
More did, but I don't know if it was. I still feel like most teams sent some of their coaches, at least.
Yeah. Okay. Now your tweet, John, said this. This is from has 4,500 votes. All right. This is from a little over an hour ago.
Yeah. Also, real quick, whenever you put something like that up on Twitter, at least, I pretty much just tweet Cowboys. So most of my followers are just Cowboys fans. So when I put up like a Cowboys related post or whatever, I'm telling you, I can't even think of a time where within the first 5 minutes, that ends up basically being what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like that first like 100 or 200 people, that sets the tone of like, and it's not like the people, because if you don't vote, you can't see the answers, but it just like, you get that first 100, 200 people, that's going to basically tell you which way it's going. Like very rarely do you see this like late push of like where it starts changing, So whatever it is, what I'm saying, whatever it is right now is what it's going to be tomorrow when it ends, when obviously this show airs.
Who would you most like to see become the next Dallas Cowboys head coach? John asked on Twitter at John Machota. Kellen Moore, Deion Sanders, Ben Johnson, other. Ben Johnson, 40%. Deion, 31%. Other, 23%. Kellen Moore, 6%.
Very popular clear. Name with the very popular name with the other is in the comments below is Aaron Glenn, by the way.
Okay.
He's probably the most popular of everybody in the comments.
I think everyone likes Aaron Glenn.
That is interesting. We talk a lot about stock rising, falling, and Ben Johnson's was just really it was a roller coaster just throughout the game alone. With people talking about some really clever stuff. I think was that the one where Brady was losing his mind. Brady was on that call, right?
Yeah. Brady
about
was great.
About the shuffle, and then at the same time you had Jameson Williams throwing the interception, and it was getting a little too cute sometimes for some people. Then it was like, oh, this is exactly what it's supposed to be, and I'm not on either extreme, but I'm very pro Ben Johnson, and I do think that his creativity. To see two people go with Dan Skipper and Sam Laporta get single coverage in the back of the end zone is pretty freaking awesome.
It's also too one of those things where I get fans like they're gonna live and die on like a game like that. I just have believed for the last few weeks that like wherever Ben Johnson's going, like I believe it's already been a done deal. It was just about when does the season end? Like he'll do his interviews and stuff like that, but like I think it comes down to Bears, Jags, and Raiders. And I think that he has a pretty good idea because he's probably talked to those teams about like who his staff would be and stuff like that. I just don't think that the Cowboys, I just don't think that they're willing to pay what it would cost to get Ben Johnson. So I just feel like they're not even going to be in those waters,
Do you think the Cowboys will or should interview Steve Spagnuolo?
I think they should.
It's an interesting one because I always wonder about like guys that have been head coaches and there's guys that Ben Johnson could be one of these people where you might just be better as a coordinator than you are a head coach. I think Steve Spagnuolo. He was an interim with the with the Giants. He was never there full time, I don't think.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Was he with the Rams though?
He was with the Rams, but I was going because
Okay.
you know who I'm thinking of, Sad? I'm thinking of Dennis Allen, where it's like he got the Raiders, he got the Saints, but like, does that mean he's not a good defensive coordinator?
Well,
No,
Dan
but maybe-
Campbell was an interim coach too.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
Yeah, the Rams head coach
with
for
the Dolphins.
Spags, 09 to 11.
I mean, Spagnola's been great. I mean, you watch that.
I mean,
Chiefs team,
I'm just
like,
trying to
their
think of
defenses-
like of coaches that the Joneses have a lot of respect for. You know,
Yeah.
And I'm
Spags over the years has given them hell as a DC.
obviously has
Super Bowl championships in his recent past. You know, I was thinking about Aaron Glenn and just let's have the mentality of going all in on the defense as our strength for the next 3 to 5 years. You sign
Yeah.
Micah, you've got Trevon, you've got Deron Bland, you've got, you could draft some guys.
But I'm just saying, with the money
Spags
invested,
maybe makes more sense to me in their mind than
Yeah.
Aaron Glenn would.
whether
if you're
it's
going to
Aaron
lean on
Glenn
the
or
defense.
Spagnuolo, whatever, the offensive coordinator, whoever they pitch to him, that's going to be a huge part of it.
yeah.
There's just too much money invested in Dak and CD for them to be like, no, you guys are just going to be game managers now. We're investing everything on the defensive side of the ball, and it's not. We don't really care like what you do on offense. Like that's just not going to be part of it. It's going to have to be somebody.
Schottenheimer.
Yeah, no, it could be if they hire a defensive coach. Yeah,
Salah's the Salah interview is interesting to me because we can feel like there's not a lot there from the Cowboys like really being interested. Like, dude, you want to fix the defense? He fixed the defense in New York. The Jets' defense was incredible. They just never had a quarterback.
yeah.
Like the defensive numbers are there for 4 years running, and I know that's that. I mean, if we're gonna talk Spags, then we're talking Aaron Glenn. We should be talking Salah.
Yeah, and part of me with all three of those, really all three of those, and I don't think I would really bring this up if it was any other team that I was covering it. Part of me, not a big part, but part of me does think of like, how is Jerry gonna see this being received as a marketing thing of how much he can rile up the fan base and get people on board and stuff like. Can you imagine just Jerry having a press conference up there introducing your new coach, Steve Spagnuolo, and thinking that, the fan base... I mean, just look at the poll that on John's tweet. I mean, it's Ben Johnson and Deion Sanders.
Kellen would make people vomit. You're
they
right.
wouldn't be excited
People would
about
be
that
more
either.
excited for Spags than they would for Kellen.
Yeah, they
and,
might.
100%.
Like, no one wants Kellen. And that's... I mean, I personally disagree with majority of Cowboys fans on that. And again, he ain't who I want them to hire. But I do think there's some slander going on there. Like, come on. And it's familiar. We want to do something new. We talk about taking a swing, and I get it. And that's why I want to do something new too. Like, I agree with you. I know I realize I'm playing both sides here, but I think I can. I feel very comfortable in saying Kellen's a good coach. And like, he's probably going to get a head coaching job sooner than later. And it might be in Jacksonville or something. But
And honestly, a fan base that I see that with KT, where I'm like, okay, I get him not being your top option, but I don't understand the extreme slander, is Bears fans with McCarthy, where I'm just like, I understand you want Ben Johnson. I'm with you on that. But acting like McCarthy would just be, scraps on the floor. Like, I don't know. Bears fans can do a lot worse than having Mike McCarthy as their head coach.
get your Eberflus back then,
Hey, there's a lot of people that are really excited about, like, even they commented under that poll about, I don't think like Deion Sanders, they would have a lot of success, but it would just make everything interesting. I'm just like, well, if that's the bar, then you gotta at least bring Rex Ryan in for an interview. I mean, if that's where you're going.
I think that's where people are at. The apathy is pretty high.
Yeah.
They just make it watchable. Jesus, we're not going to win. Doesn't matter. Look, the Washington went to a championship game. So it ain't going to happen.
John, you think it was a story last year when Micah said that he hadn't talked to Zimmer yet? Imagine that happening with Rex Ryan after their exchanges and his comments about Rex on his podcast and everything he said about him. To have him as the head coach would be great drama.
That'd be outstanding. I mean, in terms of just insanity. Okay, so we leave you on this Sunday night with the Final Four in the NFL, and based on most likely, okay, and then we'll get out of here. So if we had to go around the horn here, most likely next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys as we stand today? John, you go first.
Should we do it individually or should we just go 1, 2, 3? We all say a name.
Okay, yeah. 1, 2, 3. We all say a name.
Okay.
All right.
1, 2, 3. Jack
Kellen
Nicholson.
Moore. I knew you were gonna. I knew someone
Jack
was gonna have to
Nicholson?
throw out something.
How fun would that be? He's still with us, right?
He's still with us. Yes.
I don't see him in many movies lately.
He retired long ago, Kevin.
He retired.
So you
Harrison
guys both
Ford
said
had
Kellen Moore,
retired.
right? You said Kellen Moore.
Yeah, I said Kellen Moore. Yeah.
Kellen.
Kent?
If you're talking most likely at this
Yeah.
moment in time, yeah.
It's not. I mean, it's not a super high odds thing. You know what I'm saying? Like it's.
Yeah.
It could be as simple as Kellen's not cool with Jason Witten being on the staff and he doesn't get the job. You know, like I think you guys are dead on with like there's going to be caveats to this job no matter what. So
Here's a story The Athletic we put up. I believe it was on Friday. So this is as of the afternoon of January 17th. So that would be Friday, right?
Friday,
Today's 19th. Yeah. Kellen Moore was the odds-on favorite at minus 125, and then next was Deion Sanders at plus 175, Robert Saleh at plus 300, Brian Schottenheimer at plus 500, Ben Johnson at plus 700, and then Cliff Kingsbury and Joe Brady and Aaron Glenn were all plus 850, and then it kind of drops off after that. But I mean, that's kind of where we're at. Kellen Moore, Deion, Robert Saleh, Schottenheimer, Ben Johnson, Cliff Kingsbury, Joe Brady, Aaron Glenn. Of that group, I don't see Deion Sanders happening. I don't see Ben Johnson happening. Of that group, I would say Aaron Glenn, when he's hired, has the best chance of getting the biggest percentage of the fan base to be on board.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I think so. I think
Former Cowboy player, background obviously with when he played for the Cowboys and with the Jets, is with Parcells. Defensive
Cowboys
get
and
the fan base
Lions
riled up.
with Dan Campbell.
Right.
it doesn't even matter the name if they just hired a GM.
Oh, well, yeah, that would be.
Just
That would
any
do it.
GM.
You could literally go to fans and go, they're going to hire a GM and they're going to make a terrible coaching hire. And people would be like, yeah, cool. Where do we sign up for this? Yeah.
I
don't
always
care who
thought
the
it would
coach
be
is.
hilarious if Jerry called Troy and just straight up offered him the GM job. You know, just
Well,
put your money where your mouth is.
okay,
Troy.
now,
you're going to
Kent,
talk
Kent,
all that stuff in the media. Come in here and fix it. Then
You're taking it to another level because there are levels to this. Like their level of excitement, obviously, just getting a GM is at a certain level. But if you say that GM is Troy Aikman, I mean, that just goes through the roof. Then
I think one of me or John would get moved off the Cowboys beat and just be
the Aikman beat.
GM beat writer.
Yeah.
We'd just be on the GM beat. It would just be covering Troy and Jerry. If it was Troy Aikman, I'm saying.
yeah.
That would be that crazy. I think that would be insane.
They've never had a GM with Jerry during this radio show era. So would Troy still do his radio show?
Would
Yeah,
both
check-
of them do their radio show
Yeah.
on competing radio stations?
Yes.
If the check clears, yeah.
Well, they wouldn't do him on competing radio stations. I think that Troy would have to do his
Yeah, on the
you know,
flagship.
on the flagship station. But to still have I honestly don't think if Troy was a GM, I don't think he'd want to talk on the radio.
I don't think you would either.
I don't think that guys like that really want to do that stuff because they don't want to show their hand on any answer because they're so competitive that they don't want to give anything away to any other teams of what they might be thinking either. But why are we even going? This is just a tease that we shouldn't do this to fans.
I just thought it would be super funny if Jerry just, you know what Troy doesn't expect is me to call him and actually try to get him involved. I just would wonder what Aikman, how he would react in that situation.
Steven, if Steven was the owner, general manager, I think that you have a way better shot of something like that happening. It just Jerry is so dug in at this point, he's just never going to give into that now. But Steven, you can't rule that out that he gets to a point where it's he sees one of those things like that was going around this weekend of where it's every single NFC team has been the NFC Championship game since 2010, except for the Cowboys, 1995. That would be one of those things where, to me, almost it's like Jerry's legacy is already written. The success he's had, the impact he's had, it's already done. Whereas I could see Steven being no, I absolutely have to win a Super Bowl. I don't care whatever it takes. We got to do it. It's got to happen. Like I don't care. And the reason I say that is because that doesn't mean that you're so vocal and you're so out there. I mean, I've just seen it firsthand with like following the Lions. Like it's not like their family's the Ford family's super into it, but like they did a little bit of a step back to where they brought in Chris Spielman, a former player who was big in the behind the scenes and stuff like that. I could see Steven doing that, being open to that stuff much more than his dad ever will be.
I have one more question for you guys about the coach. Which one of these names is the most likely to consistently go 8-8?
Cliff.
I don't think Cliff would go 8-8. I think Cliff
What's
is
the
boomer
safest
bust.
hire?
I think it's Kellen. I think Kellen Moore. Cliff is
probably what
boomer
they'll go
bust.
with then, right?
Yeah, Cliff could give you a 12, 13 win season, and then he'd give you a 4-win season.
Right.
I think Kellen Moore would be the one that would be most in the middle.
Then let's boomer bust this thing, right?
Well, I think Jerry's
then it's
thought
Deion
process
Sanders.
is if this is the last guy I'm going to hire, I'm not going to drive this thing off the edge right at the end. I'm not going to
I think he's got
perhaps
two hires.
leave my kids with a 2 and 14 situation.
I don't think
or
this
whatever
is
it
his
is.
last hire.
The second hire, because the second one's going to be Witten.
I just think they're trying to keep the train on the tracks more than they're trying to shoot for the stars.
I don't think they know what they're doing.
Okay, well that's okay. Hold on, that's exactly where I was going though, because I know that's funny to say, but John, I think you said this on the Rich Eisen show or some other appearance that I saw you were on, but about the fact that the Cowboys don't really have a plan. Like they didn't have a plan when they let McCarthy go, and it just it's kind of all coming together right now, because now we hear about how they might be interested in interviewing Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. If that was the plan from the beginning, you don't waste that bye week not talking to. No, I mean, now they can talk to Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn because the Lions lost, but if they hadn't, they'd be waiting for both of those guys until February 10th. So to go back to that point, something to remember throughout this entire search is I agree with that assessment that I don't think the Cowboys really had a plan and beyond Mike McCarthy. Like maybe they thought McCarthy was just going to stay and they were going to be able to incentivize his contract and do whatever. But I think they're kind of figuring it all out right now, and it's only been 1 week.
I think they have concepts of a plan. Real quick, I would say, I do think Cliff, because you guys floated the Aaron Glenn thing, I do think Cliff is more likely than Aaron Glenn here.
Really?
And I don't think that's the right call, by the way. I'm a Cliff fan, but not here. I think Cliff would be more likely than Aaron Glenn here, personally.
Did you rank them Kellen 1, Deion 2, Cliff 3?
I would have Aaron Glenn above both of them.
I agree with
I
KT.
don't think this Deion thing is for real. I'm sorry. And if I'm wrong,
I don't either.
I'll gladly, whatever. But how is there not an interview there? Where we're at right now, how are you not setting something up?
Yeah. I would go Kellen, Cliff, Aaron Glenn. Jeez. I feel pretty good about it being an offensive hire too. Unless it's a bridge, unless it's a clear bridge older. If they're going to go old guy, then there's, if they can get Zimmer to do it for a year or two.
I don't think this is going to happen, but you can't completely rule it out after seeing Saturday night. If he puts out a masterclass against the Eagles and you get that Washington team to the Super Bowl, there's going to be a lot of people trying to interview Cliff Kingsbury.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to be that's huge because, again, like I said, nobody looks at that defense. They're like, oh, the defense is just loaded. That's why they're winning. Like I'm saying, they're giving up tons of yards. They got a bunch of takeaways, so that helped. But it's because the offense is doing what the offense is doing. And most importantly, you're able to do that year one with Jaden Daniels. His stock would be
and it's not exactly
high.
a stacked and it's not exactly a stacked unit around Jaden Daniels. I mean, this isn't A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, and Saquon Barkley around him. So
it's De'Ami Brown.
Yeah.
Terry
McLaurin is a beast, absolutely. But even Ertz, I mean, he's such a go-to guy for them, especially in the red zone and that. But I mean, when you just watch him play, even though Saturday was a bad example because I'm pretty sure he was concussed throughout that game, but he's not the same Zach Ertz that he was, 4 or 5 years ago.
No. Another Cliff's one of Cliff's favorites though, back in Arizona. Ertz. Yeah. All right. Well, we will be back later in the week, I would imagine, as we'll see what happens in Cowboy land when it comes to the head coaching search. Will they get it done before the Shrine game? That's all everyone wants to know. Actually, no one's asking that question. I don't really know why I said that. The Final Four's in, though.
Is the question. Will they get it done before the Shrine game?
The number of fans that even know what the Shrine game
The clock is ticking.
Shador in your city. Go see him. Bills, Chiefs, Commanders, and Eagles. Oh, it hurts to say it. There's your Final Four. Follow Sod and John over on where you follow people on the internet. Twitter X usually. John's firing up the new TikTok now that TikTok's back.
Oh, I've been working on dances.
So there's good dances up there. So make sure to check that out. In fact, he's going to do a whole series on actors as NFL quarterbacks. So go check that out.
I'm going to do the evolution of NFL quarterbacks in a dance.
In a dance move. This is very interpretive. Very good. Follow that Mad About Movies podcast, too, with Kent Garrison, breaking down the latest. It is Oscars season, so check that out, too. And we will see you when we see you. Everyone have a great week. Stay warm. And we'll see. Stay tuned. We'll talk to you later. Thank you for listening to the One Star Cowboys.
Nobody wants the Cowboys fade. Coach's seed, a curse is stayed. Cherish that loom so great. Who'll be next to seal their fate? Hear the whispers in the halls, haunted echoes, empty calls. Search for coaches, fill the stalls. No takers for those long falls. Nobody wants the Cowboys fade. Coach's seed, a curse is stayed. Cherish that loom so great. Who'll be next to seal their fate?
Why not just start the day fucking it up?